Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis hanging out. In for Will Sutton, and Will is a little under the weather right now. We are wishing Will a speedy recovery so he can get back in here and hang out with you. I hope you're doing well this morning, and I hope that you are taking your time getting to work. I hope you're taking your time getting the kiddos to school and all that good stuff. I don't know about you, but I actually am feeling good this morning. I'm feeling good this morning, and it may sound cliche, but I am feeling good this morning because I woke up. Something I've been reflecting about a lot lately. I spent 2 weeks doing minimal social media. There are a couple of platforms I just did not mess with for 2 weeks. And one of the things that I took the time to do is I took the time to be much more thankful for what I have than than concentrating on what I don't have. I spent a lot of time doing that for a couple of weeks. And I have to tell you, if you are someone who you're into social media, you love having your device around, do yourself a break. Get off of social media for at least a week. Do that favor for yourself. Give your brain time to breathe and to process, but then also give your emotions time to settle. Give your spirit time to rest. And there's actually a neurological reason that I'm going to run by you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share with you in just a little bit um, something that a psychology professor wrote about 5 tips to make your memory work more effectively. And one of those involves devices. I'm going to share that with you in just a little bit. Don't let me forget. See what I did there, Jared? And so we have these distractions on social media, and I just heavily advise you, if you just get and listen, if you don't want to get away from it completely, then minimize it. Truthfully, I didn't get off of social media. What I did was, as I mentioned, I minimized it. I stayed on LinkedIn. I do business on LinkedIn, um, and of course, being on the Good Morning Show, I did a little bit of Facebook. That's only because the wonderful community that we have on the Good Morning Show for WBOK, so many of you hang out with us on Facebook. So I definitely took the time to continue to hang out on Facebook. But other than that, reducing my social media intake for 2 weeks, here's what happened. I was less anxious. I read more. I was able to be much more mindful of my actions. And I simply rested more. You and I both know how this works when it comes to social media. The issue with social media is that there are these algorithms that are designed to addict people to social media. And you ask yourself, well, why do they want to do that? Social media companies are private companies. They want to make money. How do they make money? Well, they're doing advertising. How do they get advertisers? Advertisers want to know that there's a certain amount of users. And so they have to figure out how to get people to continue using social media. And so the idea is to feed the addiction as much as possible. And in feeding the addiction, what do we get addicted to? We get addicted to bad news. We get addicted to toxic behavior. It is much easier for the brain to respond to things that are negative than it is for our brains to respond to things that are positive. As a matter of fact, this is an experiment I did myself. I've been in radio for about 30 years. And I've seen this time and time again. People will hit the phone lines really quickly to talk about what's bad in the world. If I can get you really upset, you're going to make this call, right? Whatever the call is. If I can get you upset, you'll make the call, you'll get on the line, you'll talk about there ought to be a law and that sort of thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The problem is that if I were to sit and for 2 hours talk about nothing but good news, phone lines are not going to light up. People are not going to get excited about what's happening in the world. Some of us do. But a lot of us who do get excited about hearing good news and things that are going on in the world, great things going on in the world, unfortunately, we're in the minority. That is why in media, you have the adage, if it bleeds, it leads. And so I realized that I needed to detach myself from that, especially one platform in particular, Threads. I had to get off of Threads. Folks are working to make Threads Black Twitter 2.0, and it's not going the way they think it's going. The Threads to me is a pretty toxic platform. Lots of cynicism on Threads. Everybody on Threads is right. I don't care what they're talking about. Everybody's right about everything. Everybody's figured everything out. And you need to be quiet if you don't agree. That's how Threads works. So I had to get away from this stuff, and that's what I did. So all of that to say that I am more than thankful to get up this morning. I'm more than thankful to have my faculties, and I am thankful to be hanging out with you. And I am going to share with you in just a couple of minutes, a couple of things that I think are really, really useful pieces of information. One, again, 5 tips to make your memory work more effectively. But there's another one. The other thing that I want to share with you is a piece that I read that calls How to Help Your Neurodivergent Employees Thrive on the Job. This is an important piece. You've heard me tell this story before, and I am someone who found out at the age of 53 that I have ADHD. I'm 55 now. I'll be 56 in June. And so it wasn't a shock to my system at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. When my therapist asked me if I considered that I have ADHD, trust me when I said, oh yeah, I know something's going on up there. And so, but the thing about it that upset me is that I did not perform as well as I could have performed in my last leadership position. And I couldn't figure out why is it I had difficulty managing long tasks, or I should say long projects. I couldn't figure out why is it that, I had so much trouble remembering things. I kept thinking of myself as being flighty. I kept thinking of myself as being lazy when I couldn't get a long project done. And I beat myself up a lot. But I also had a boss who kind of beat me up too. And so I think this article, How to Help Your Neurodivergent Employees Thrive on the Job, is not just for leaders. This is for coworkers. And so when you have that person sitting at the table for a meeting, or if you have that person who you gave some quote unquote simple instructions to, and they didn't execute it the right way, or they didn't remember what you told them, and you get really impatient with them, it could be that you are dealing with someone who's neurodivergent. They could have ADHD, they could have autism, they could have a learning disability. And so I can't wait to get to this article in just a couple of minutes, How to Help Your Neurodivergent Employees Thrive on the Job, and then also 5 tips to make your memory work more effectively. I'm Eddie Francis. I'm in for Will Sutton, and this is the Good Morning Show on WBOK. What New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Good Thursday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. This morning, 4 people are picking up the pieces after a massive fire in the Bywater. The NOFD says it's a multi-unit building, and all 4 people inside were able to safely escape. The NOFD also says the cause of that fire is under investigation. Today, the Archdiocese of New Orleans is back in court for another bankruptcy hearing. This comes after a judge approved a $230 million settlement back in December to compensate hundreds of clergy sex abuse survivors. Nearly 150 parishes and charities will contribute $65 million to the settlement fund, and the diocese will also pay about $28 million with an interest rate of a little more than 4% over 12 years to bondholders, as well as pay a portion of additional fees. The money is expected to pay out an estimated 600 claimants in the case. The Clerk of Court's office, along with the Registrar of Voters, are reminding you to check on your voter registration. The system was purged recently for a number of reasons. And now in this process, many people reported being switched to an inactive voter, especially requiring them to check in and ensure they are actively aiming to vote in elections. However, you are still able to vote in this election. Early voting, by the way, runs from May 2nd through the 9th. And First Quarter Fest is here, and if you rely on RTA to get around, riders may see delays on several bus routes and streetcar lines, but they're increasing capacity in the Canal Street Algiers ferry. All right, I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day.
Attention, WBOK listeners. Are you a fan of the station and want to show your support and style? Well, we've got some exciting news for you. Introducing the official WBOK merchandise, the perfect way to wear your love for the station. Whether you're a longtime listener or a new fan, we've got something for everyone. Head to WBOK1230.com now and grab your WBOK gear before it's gone. When you buy WBOK merch, you're not just getting quality items, you're supporting the station you love.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Coming up at 7:20, we're going to have Congressman Troy Carter join us as he does every week. And then in the next hour, we're going to have Katie Reckdahl from The Lens join us. And she's going to talk about an article that she wrote. Did faulty court data drive the legislative push to cut 11 judges and clerk in Orleans Parish? We're going to talk about that in the 8 o'clock hour. But for now, you have someone at work who probably just confounds you. You don't understand their behavior. You don't understand why they forget things. You ask them questions like, where are you right now? Are you with us? And excuse me, there was an article that I caught in Fast Company by Art Markman. It's called How to Help Your Neurodivergent Employees Thrive on the Job. And we're talking about people who may have been diagnosed with ADHD, autism, they may have a learning disability. They could have some other disorder. They could have an anxiety disorder. And so if you're wondering how you can work with these folks, there's some really interesting things that Markman writes in this. And he really writes it from the standpoint of someone who is a boss of someone who's neurodivergent. But let's think about it as being a good colleague. And the first thing that he writes is engage with curiosity. Start by being curious. Meet with your colleague and get their permission to ask questions so that you know best how to enable them to succeed, he writes. Trust your employee to know what works for them. They are an expert in themselves. In addition, he writes, you should let your supervisee or your colleague know that you are quite likely to make some mistakes yourself. So encourage them to talk to you when you have approached the situation in the wrong way or have asked them to do something in a way that goes beyond their capacity. The other thing, though, that Markman advises is to set high standards and high support at the same time. Now, there's a book that he read called 10 to 25 by David Yeager, and it talks a lot about the power of mixing high standards and high support to create a great environment for adolescents and young adults. But when applied, though, to the workplace, he writes, you might be tempted to hold your neurodivergent supervisees to a set of different standards than other employees. But that's a mistake. The job that you've hired someone to do is important for the success of the organization. The other thing is that it harms the employee inadvertently. So you should expect excellence from people, but allow flexibility for the way you work with these folks and you help them get things done. For example, maybe they need to be off camera for a Zoom call because of the visual stimulus. Or maybe they do need an AI note taker during meetings so that they can remember what the meeting was about. The other thing is, it's the law, by the way, when it comes to working with neurodivergent people, that you have to make accommodations for them. But it's also just a good idea. The Americans with Disabilities Act, it does set out those requirements. But also, it's just the right way to engage with folks because a good supervisor or a good colleague should be aware of what their employees need to work effectively. While you can't always give everyone what they want, the more that you can help to provide a hospitable work environment, the more that employees will bring their full selves to work. And oh, by the way, the more you'll get done. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But also, let's think about 5 tips to make your memory work more effectively. Now, this is by Elva Aruchivlan. She's a lecturer in psychology, in neuroscience, and also in a researcher in neuroscience in Trinity College, or I should say at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, or should I say Dublin. And so one of the things that she writes is that you have 3 different types of memory. We have sensory memory, which lasts milliseconds. We have short-term memory or working memory. And that one, it manipulates a small amount of information over several seconds or more. And of course, we have long-term memory, stuff that can last us for a few minutes or for a lifetime. And so the first thing that she mentions that we need to do to help our memories work better, put the phone away. Phone away. Because she wrote that smartphones reduce our working memory capacity. Just having it nearby, even if it's face down or on silent, it can reduce performance on memory and reasoning tasks. The reason is that part of our brains are subtly monitoring what's happening with the phone, she writes. Even in resisting the urge to check the notifications, consumes mental resources. That's why researchers, she writes, call smartphones a brain drain. So, what's the solution? Put it in another room. Can I tell y'all something? I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten my phone in another room, and I have been relieved. Like, I'll walk around the house and go, where did I put the thing? And I'm not pressed to find it. I'm just not. The other thing, stop your mind racing. Stress and anxiety can take up valuable mental space. So, relax yourself. Engage in mindfulness practices to improve both working memory and also your academic performance if you're in school, and also your work performance. It also reduces stress levels. And so one of the things that she suggests is cyclic sighing is what it's called. Inhale deeply through the nose, take a second shorter inhale, and then slowly exhale through the mouth. All right, here's another thing that she suggests, and that is chunking. I've never heard of chunking, but what that is grouping information into meaningful units. You probably already do it in order to remember some phone numbers or a list of words or a list of names. So the same principle applies when it comes to doing a presentation or doing some sort of task. So chunking would involve grouping 10 pieces of information into 3 or 4 themes, each with a short headline, a single key takeaway. Also become a retriever. And what she means is find ways to retrieve information that you need. So preparing to give a talk, for example, rather than simply rereading notes, keep testing yourself on how much you remember. Use flashcards. Answer practice questions. Try explaining the material out loud without notes. If you're someone who is looking for a job right now and you are up for job interviews, I suggest this. As a matter of fact, I have coached people on getting ready for job interviews. And I always advise people to take a look at your resume, think about some stories about work that you have done, and chunk that information in the words of the author of this article. And so what you can do is you can just keep going over it until it feels comfortable for you to explain it to someone else, because there might be something on your resume, you did it, but you just don't know how to explain it. That's actually normal. That's doesn't make you, it doesn't make you unintelligent. But we do things, and sometimes we can't explain what we did or how we did it or why it was successful. And so chunking the information, going over the information again and again until you can remember the chunks of information so that you explain it, that can work really well. And then the biggest thing, give yourself a break. Research shows that memory is more effective when study or practice sessions are spread out. So instead of us trying to cram everything together, this is why cramming doesn't work as well as we would like it to. Instead of doing that, give our brains an opportunity to rest. And so what studies suggest is that if you are getting ready for, again, if you're in school, if you're getting ready for an exam, or if you're doing some work and you get ready for some stuff you have to do at work, or maybe you have something to do for church and you have to memorize this thing and you're trying to memorize it, then give your brain a break. Go over it for a little bit, rest, go over it again, rest, go over it again. All right? So hopefully that is helpful. Hopefully it'll help you do your job much better. But I know someone who does his job very well, and that is Congressman Troy Carter. We're going to get to him in just a little bit. This is the Good Morning Show. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton on WBOK. What New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Mostly sunny skies and warm once again. We'll see highs 82 to 87. There is a small chance of a shower or two for today, for the afternoon and the evening, but again, most of us will end up staying dry. Then for tonight, lows 63 to 66. For your Friday, highs 82 to 88. For Saturday, also into the 80s. And then a cold front moves in for Sunday morning, dropping our temperatures to the 70s. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Real issues, real talk, real solutions. Miss an episode of The Reality Check? You can catch every episode anytime. Search WBOK Media on your favorite podcast app to tap the bold commentary, real-time reactions, and powerful perspectives from the people and leaders shaping our city. Download, share, and rate it 5 stars, because the real ones always stay informed.
City Park is where to go when you don't know where to go. Turn towards the city center and start walking. Before long, you'll end up where you belong. At the heart of the city, New Orleans City Park. Stroll along the reeded marsh, wander through the sculpture garden, rest and recharge beneath ancient oak trees. This is where your spirit goes to grow. It's in our nature to yearn for nature. NewOrleansCityPark.org, heart of the city.
Looking for a great deal on your next phone? Come see us at your locally owned AT&T store for the latest Samsung and iPhones. Visit us at 3616 South Carrollton Avenue. We have great offers on watches, tablets, accessories, and internet service. Whatever your connectivity needs are, our team is here to help you keep connected. Visit us today at AT&T, 3616 South Carrollton Avenue. Locally owned and proudly giving back to the community. The Ron Kelly Show. Real talk, bold truth. Tune in for your weekly dose of unapologetic conversations that don't dodge the truth or dilute the message. Stay informed on the issues that matter most on The Ron Kelly Show, every Monday at 7 p.m. on WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning.
Wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Good morning and welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Hope you're having a great morning. As he does every week, he joins us on the Good Morning Show, Congressman Troy Carter. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Brother Francis. How are you this morning?
I'm doing really well, man. If I were any better, I would jump through the roof.
Oh man, that's a blessing. Let's make that contagious.
Yes, let's do it.
Positive affirmations, brother. Powerful.
Yes, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. So, you've had as always, you've had a busy week. You have participated though in two hearings, the Energy and Commerce Committee. Tell us about those two hearings. What was going on, and what did you talk about?
Well, as you know, Energy and Commerce Committee is one of the most significant committees in the United States Congress. We have jurisdiction over everything healthcare, everything energy, everything environment, everything communications and technology. Yesterday, we had several leading experts in the area of ALS, dementia treatment, and issues dealing with mental health. I had the opportunity to remind everyone, as we talked about the reauthorization of these critical studies that allow us to continue to address the needs of these dreaded diseases and provide funding, had an opportunity to remind everyone about Steve Gleason, the former New Orleans Saints player who blocked the punt in the first game after the returning to the Superdome after Katrina. Years later to find out that he had been diagnosed with ALS. And to talk about his inspiring story, how he continues to use his illness instead of retreating and living his life through his sufferers. He has allowed his face to be added to the cause, to talk about issues of importance to find a cure for this dreaded disease. So we had an opportunity to talk to noted experts about that and to highlight the story, the journey that he, as a former New Orleans Saints beloved player, has gone through, but equally as important to talk about how we can continue to fight for resources for a cure for ALS, for dementia, fighting to make sure that we have school-based health care where young people in the schools, like they were when we were much younger, you had a nurse, you had a counselor, you had a social counselor. We don't have those things at the rate that we used to. Now we need to fight to make sure that every school has a counselor there to provide guidance, not just academic, but sometimes social or mental health, someone that can talk to our children when they're feeling a little down. You know, the whole issue of mental health is a real epidemic in our community, and we tend to want to stick our head in the sand. And unlike any other issue, we think that mental health issues will go away on their own, but they won't. But they can go away with effective counseling, medication, education, diet, exercise. But you have to be willing to talk to someone. In this case, there has to be someone there that you can talk to. So in addition to funding the completely operational, 100% funded 988 hotline that a person can call if they're feeling depressed or contemplating suicide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 988 is available if someone wants to pick up the phone and talk to someone totally free of charge. No one will track or trace. No one will come to your house. No one will even ask your name, number, or anything unless you want to give it if it's an emergency and you'd like help. Other than that, this is a 24-hour real person phone phone line that someone can call. These issues are important, and they came up in committee yesterday, so I wanted to share that with our viewers.
So, Congressman, if you'll allow me, I like to play devil's advocate on the part of listeners, and I think what may be of concern to some folks is that something that we have heard about, especially we heard about it last year, is how funding was cut to some of these services. So, how does that come into play with what we have heard through media reports about funding cuts, especially to areas like the CDC? What should we understand about how this plays out?
What you should understand is that this president, his administration, and the Secretary of Health, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., have it all backwards. That their cuts are hurting people. Their attempted cuts at critical funding for health care. There's some 17 million people that will have health care ripped away from them because of this big, ugly bill that they boast as a big, beautiful bill. Well, there's nothing beautiful about that bill. It hurts Americans across our country. Here in Louisiana, it has a devastating and will have a devastating outcome once the full breadth of it goes into effect. And remember, they were slick enough to have these effects not kick in until after the midterm elections to fool people, because they knew if they kicked in, people would feel the pain. But we want to remind people the pain is around the corner, and we're fighting every single day to undo that. That's why elections are so important. They have consequences. In order for us to reverse these cuts that I'm glad you brought up, these cuts that are affecting critical resources, we have to change the policy. In order to change the policy, we have to have the votes. And therein lies where the power of the people to come to the ballots and to send a resounding message that Donald Trump is not king, and he certainly is not God. And we're going to keep sending him that message as powerfully as we can.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman. By the way, your phone number, 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422, if you have a question for Congressman Troy Carter. Now, also on the docket is your attendance at the AABE National Conference. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we were very fortunate this week to have the American Association of Blacks in Energy to have their national conference here I'm in D.C. now, but there in New Orleans, which was very important because this is an organization of African Americans who are in the energy space, which is significant because you know that there's not comparatively enough African Americans in this space. Rather, it's in energy, engineering, science, technology, math. These are the areas of that typically are courses of study going into the area of energy. And yet we had, a ballroom full of African Americans who are part of the American Association of Blacks in Energy. And they were in town to talk about issues that are important. They drew perspectives from us to talk about utilities, to talk about what does it mean. We often only see that bill once a month, and what does it mean to see the rising cost of energy? How do we help people by coming up with cleaner, easier, better forms of energy? How do we deal with weatherization of our homes? How do we make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck as far as saving on these increasingly high costs to cooler homes in the summer or warmer homes in the winter? An opportunity to talk to those noted experts was very important, in particular to see so many African Americans that are in this space We had an opportunity to welcome the new CEO of ABE, which is American Association of Blacks in Energy, Jay Knott. We also were fortunate to have the United States Senator Alsobrook in town to be a part of the discussion. She's from Maryland, one of our newer United States senators, to add to our list of now having 4 African-American United States senators in our nation's capital. She was in our state as well. So it was great to have an opportunity to sit on the policy panel where we discussed how legislative priorities and public policies are shaping the direction of the energy sector, both in federal, state, and local levels.
When you think about the visit that you had with the conference, and I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but is there anything that you can think of where you just kind of thought to yourself, "Oh man, this is something I really, really want to kind of work on a little bit," or anything you wanted to follow up on?
Yeah, because what was most exciting for me was standing there at the podium and speaking directly to them. I had an opportunity to speak to their hearts and say, because you're in a space that we being African American professionals, are not as represented as our counterparts, you undoubtedly will be in rooms and at tables where you're the only one. You've got to bring our perspective to that table. You've got to bring our perspective to that room. You've got to use your voice as a person that is at the table to let excuse me,
no
to let us all be at that table, to talk about the things that, but for the fact that someone of our perspective of African American to be at a table where historically we're not, we got to use that advantage. Don't blow it. Don't sit there and fail to talk about the issues that are oftentimes ignored when we're not at the table. And I can see the head shaking in agreement as I made that challenge, that respectful challenge, that we never, ever miss the opportunity. Let's never be so happy to be at the table that we just sit there. When you're at that table, you've got to talk about things that are important to our people that oftentimes won't get said if we aren't there.
All right. Well, you have a great opportunity for young folks in our community to show their talents through art, and that's the Congressional Art Competition. Tell us about that, because there's a deadline for submissions for anyone who wants to get involved, correct?
Yeah, actually, it's Monday. So we send this out every year. And thank you for bringing that up. We have our Congressional Art Competition. This is an annual tradition that we do. It's a powerful reminder how art can challenge injustice and spark meaningful dialogue. So we encourage our young people to express themselves on the canvas. And the winner gets to have a unique opportunity to come to Washington and be recognized here on Capitol Hill. Their art will hang in the congressional tunnel between our office buildings and the floor of the House of Representatives, where literally hundreds of people every day walk by and will see their art hanging on the wall. It's open to all the schools in my congressional district, but in each congressional district, actually, every member of Congress is a part of this, and we encourage students to participate. They should check out our website, troycarter.house.gov, for more information. It's a great opportunity. This prestigious competition offers students a unique opportunity to express themselves and to be seen on a national stage. I love it because every year we have kids from every school in the district to participate, and then we judge them to determine which ones make it to the higher ranks, and then ultimately the winner gets to get a free trip to Washington, D.C. to be recognized and to see their art hanging in the nation's capital.
Outstanding. Well, we got a couple of callers on the line right now, Congressman. So we're going to go first to Pop Jones this morning to see what's on his mind. Good morning, Pop Jones. How are you?
Good, fine, Eddie, and good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'll make it short and sweet. Do you support the former vice president if she runs for president?
If the former vice president runs for president, I was 100% supportive of our dear Kamala Harris before, and she will absolutely be a super contender if she runs again. Premature to say if I would support, because I don't know who else is running, Pop, but I love her, and I think she'd make a great candidate.
Well, I have another question to ask you, too. Do you support the present administration in Israel, or you support her? I would like you to ask her that question. Do she support the present administration in Israel 100%?
Well, I can tell you that I do not support this president at all.
Okay, all right.
And I suspect that she would answer that the same way, but I'll be happy to deliver that message.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Pop. Really
God bless you.
We also got Dell on the line this morning. Good morning, Dell. You're on with Congressman Troy Carter.
Good morning, Congressman. How you doing?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am excellent. I heard you talking about mental health, and especially for our students. I noticed that some of I'm a school portrait provider. My company provides.
Hello. Wait, you break it up. I can't. You got a little feedback there, Brother Dell.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
What about now?
Sounds better.
Okay. My company provides school portraits for schools around the region. And I noticed that some of the schools have a requirement for suicide prevention on the back of the student IDs. Would you support, or do you think it's a good idea to have that implemented as a mandate, but not only just suicide prevention, but also for communication to the school counselors at the various schools? Do you think that would be beneficial?
Brother Dell, you must be a mind reader. I have a bill that I have authored and introduced in the United States Congress as we speak that would do exactly what you're saying. It would require that on driver's licenses and on student IDs that the 988 number is published. Also, that signs be placed around schools wherever to notify and let kids know that the 988 number is available, and also that student counseling is available. That it would be on their student IDs, it would be on signs around schools, and it would be around in the school and on school bulletins. That's federal legislation. But I'm also proud to announce that my dear friend Delisha Boyd, State Representative Delisha Boyd, just passed the mirroring companion bill at the state legislature, and it's on its way through the process as we speak. So her bill will actually get through the process faster because federal legislation takes a lot longer than state. So I'm proud to let you know that Louisiana will be among the first states to have that as a statewide mandate. And then when my bill kicks in, we'll have a federal mandate to do the exact same thing.
Well, the unique part about it now, sir, and I'll land and let somebody else get on, that for the IDs, as crazy as it sounds, and I'll talk to you more about it, there are no additional costs.
I understand. That's what I'm telling you. We're doing it. Yeah. I've done all the research. We've done all the research. Adding the website, adding the phone number. You are absolutely correct, and we've been working on this for a while. That's what I said. You must have we must be sharing a brain here, but I agree with you totally. The value that this will bring and the lives that it will save will be amazing.
All right.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Brother Dale. We appreciate you, man.
All right. And we got one more. We got Alicia on the line this morning. Good morning, Alicia. You're on with Congressman Troy Carter.
Good morning. Good morning to both of you guys. Congressman,
good morning, my dear
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you personally For the event you had for the Democratic National Committee, the conference, the event you had Friday, I was so surprised and happy at the same time that a lot of young Democrats participated. And I met so many of them, and they wanted to know how could they get truly involved. And I was able to tell them there's stepping stones to get in. But two things that really, really touched me. I met the state rep from North Carolina. I think I told you.
Yes.
She's the deputy. She's the chair of the the Black Caucus. Yes. Well, we're going to follow up because just talking to her from North Carolina, I was able to talk to her. She knows my ancestors way back to the enslaver, who's also my great-grandfather. But also, what I was excited about, Representative Malcolm Kenyatta.
Yes.
That young man is a firebrand. That young man is a kick-A kind of person. And he gives them the blues up there in Pennsylvania. And I wish the young people get involved, and be like him. I loved him. When I recognized him, I was acting like a groupie because I see him all the time on the news. And that's what we need. That's what we need for the Democratic Party. We need firebrand, kick-A representatives and senators. Like we have some of the ones here in Louisiana. I'm not going to name the one who I think is a big gangster, but he's on the quiet side. But that's what we need, and I think we need to recruit more like him. And thank you for what you did last week.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much, Alicia, for your friendship and your stewardship in the community. We need more like you who are willing to tell it like it is and not be afraid to stand up for what's right as you do every day. And I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, Eddie, one of the things that I'm proud of, for the first time ever, we had, and this is embarrassing to say, to have to admit this statistic, before we were able to convince the Democratic Party to have its annual meeting here this past week, it had never happened before.
Really?
This is the first time ever that the Democratic Party has held one of its annual meetings in the city of New Orleans or in the state of Louisiana. Proud to have had Ken Martin, who is the new chairman of the Democratic Party, and all of their members to convene in the city of New Orleans for their annual meeting or their quarterly meeting. And it's never happened in New Orleans before. So again, you have not because you asked not. We petitioned, we asked why, and boom, here they are. It's about pushing, it's about fighting, it's about leadership. And as a result of those efforts, I want to give a shout out to Randall Gaines, our party chair, Deidris Lannis, who is the executive director of the party, and the entire Louisiana Democratic Party, and all of our leaders who stood in lockstep to make sure that this was a fantastic week for the Democrats to be in. Alicia mentioned we had a great party. The party was great, but the sessions, the work was even greater, talking about how we organize, how we include, how we invest money in the South, because you can't harvest what you don't plant.
Right.
And if you want to turn Louisiana blue, you got to put some money on us. If you want to demonstrate that when we vote, the red that we see will turn blue, you got to do that through organizing. And you can't organize just right before a campaign. Organizing has to be every day, and it requires investment in time and money and energy. And I was very clear to make that message. And sometimes I had to be a little stern to make sure it was clearly heard that the party, that we always loved, hadn't always loved us back. And it's time that we get that old Teddy Pendergrass 50-50 love, that we're all contributing at the same rate to make our party and our state and our country a better place.
All right, Congressman. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now, and then after that, we're going to let you talk a little bit about the podcast. In the meantime, I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Congressman Troy Carter is joining us. This is WBOK on what we are on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat, brought to you by FidelityInvestments.com. Now that we're in the second year of President Donald Trump's second term, our team of analysts at Bloomberg Intelligence is taking stock of how some of the administration's pushback against DEI is changing the business landscape. I spoke with Bloomberg Intelligence senior ESG analyst Rob Duboff, whose research shows that the way corporations talk about their boardrooms has seen a big shift.
Companies, when they nominate directors, they used to say, here's our 12 director nominees, X% are women, X% are people of color. Now, they just say, we look for directors with a background of a diversity of viewpoints in their background. They're not really getting into what diversity is. It's kind of become this more vague term of just, people who have differences of opinion.
This change in approach could be a company's way of maintaining its core values related to diversity while not drawing the ire of the White House. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
David was in big trouble with the IRS.
At first, I didn't owe that much, but after this year, it was out of control.
Then David called Get a Tax Lawyer.
Right away, they were like, oh yeah, looks like you're qualified to say
Get a Tax Lawyer went to work.
Should have called way sooner.
Get a Tax Lawyer has helped thousands like David fight the IRS and get a fresh start.
Call 800-745-3070. That's 800-745-3070.
Pros, just because something on the job runs out doesn't mean you have to. Order it on the Lowe's app. My Lowe's Pro Rewards members get free same-day delivery on eligible orders over $25. Get the fasteners, hardware, or tools you need to keep the job moving. Order by 2 p.m. and get eligible in-stock items delivered right to your job site by 8 p.m. Members get more at Lowe's. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Subject to availability. Restrictions and terms at lowes.com/shipping terms. Subject to change.
Trying to grow your business or increase traffic to your location? We can help. WBOK 1230 AM has a number of solutions that will meet your individual needs. Give one of our consultants a call today at 504-582-9420 or email us at info@wbok1230.com. And remember, an investment with WBOK is an investment in our community. Call today.
Join the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation as it brings the island vibes of Jamaica to Generations Hall at the 2026 Jazz and Heritage Gala on Wednesday, April 22nd from 7 till 10 p.m. One love, one music, one people presents an electric evening supporting music, education with iconic performances by the Wailers featuring Julia Marley, Big Sam's Funky Nation, and the Don, Moose Jameson's Heritage School of Music All-Stars featuring Deacon John. Visit jazzandheritagegala.com for more information.
This is The Law in Your Legacy. I'm attorney Pete Hamilton.
I'm attorney Ryan Hamilton. Losing a loved one is tough enough. Do you really want your family dealing with court battles and paperwork on top of it?
Whether you choose a will or a trust, think ahead. Take care of your family. Let them focus on healing instead of headaches. This is not legal advice. That's just a tip brought to you by Liberty Bank and Trust. For more information, go to libertybank.net or contact us at 504-915-5016.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. And joining us this morning, as he does every week, is Congressman Troy Carter. And so we have a podcast that you do every single, I don't know if you do it every week. Is it a weekly podcast? What Makes America Tick?
Well, we do it. We actually record once a month, but because we have several in the can, it airs constantly. So we put a new one up every month, but the broadcasts that we have in the can come out as they were recorded, and you will find that you can listen to What Makes America Tick on WBOK every week with exciting newsmakers from all over the world, not just the country. We talk to policymakers, members of Congress, heads of state, heads of corporation, heads of economic development, academia, nonprofit, community leaders, community organizers, people that are a part of literally what makes America tick. You can listen to us right here on WBOK. You can listen wherever you find your listen to your podcast or on YouTube. But what's significant about this is WBOK is the only place you will hear it on the radio. So I encourage you to come listen to What Makes America Tick with your host, Congressman Troy Carter, talking about issues that are important to you from the local, state, federal level, and international issues that are important. As I always remind us, an informed people is a smart, prepared people. We have to always, particularly in this day and age when this president, this orange man in the White House, is trying to roll back and take away the rights that many of our forefathers and foremothers fought for. And we're not going to have it. But in order to do that, we have to maintain our consciousness. We have to be adroit, aware, informed, and we have to be prepared to vote and to speak truth to power and say, we ain't going back. We're not letting you turn the clock back on us. These issues that we talk about, that and so many more on What Makes America Tick with your host, Congressman Troy Carter. God bless you. God bless WBOK. As always, Brother Francis, it is a blessing to be with you, to be with the BOK family, and to all of the listeners out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for believing. It's ugly now, but I promise you, together, it's going to get better.
All right. Congressman Troy Carter joins us every single week. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And coming up, we have more of the Good Morning Show coming up right over the top of the hour after this break. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton on the Good Morning Show on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
WBOK New Orleans, home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Vice President J.D. Vance is criticizing Pope Leo, saying the pontiff should be careful when speaking on theology.
I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword?
The remarks follow criticism from President Trump after the Pope condemned violence and warfare. A black 88-year-old Chicago woman reported missing has been found dead. Police charged Danius Graves' son, 66-year-old Kevin Works, with first-degree murder after her body was discovered in a Roseland basement on the city's south side. And the Dallas Wings selected UConn star Azzi Fudd, #1 in the WNBA draft, reuniting her with former teammate Paige Buchers. Fudd headlines a first round loaded with top collegiate talent. The preseason tip-off is on April 25th. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. And many thanks again to Congressman Troy Carter for joining us as he does every single weekend. Many thanks to those of you in our Facebook community, the WBOK Facebook community. Good morning to you. Linda Lewis, thank you for joining us. Melba, thank you for joining us. Fern Ware, thank you for joining us as you always do. Karen Marks, we appreciate you. Jacqueline Wilmore, thank you for joining us. And also thank you so much, Andrew Harris Jr., for joining us. And thank you for staying engaged. And thank you also to the callers who call in every single time we have folks on. So the NAACP is deciding that they're going to take a stand to push the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from office. This is reported in the Louisiana Weekly by Hazel Trice Edney. I hope I did get that correct as far as the middle name is concerned. But the article says the NAACP is among those leading the call on the president's cabinet, including Vice President Vance, cabinet secretaries, or another body that could be assembled by Congress to invoke the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And this is to have President Donald Trump removed from office amidst what appears to be the loss of his mind to the extent that he could endanger masses of innocent lives in a, quote, grave national security crisis, I should say. The call came from the NAACP, Democratic members of Congress, activists, and other political observers, and it has grown louder since Trump, joining with Israel, waged war against Iran, with no declaration of war by Congress. The article goes on to say that in addition to concerns about Trump's history of what appears to be a pathological lying, talk of the use of the 25th Amendment especially hit the fan on Easter Sunday morning, April 6th. That was when Trump posted a profanity-laced threat to Iran on the day that is considered among the highest and the holiest days on the Christian calendar. And Trump went completely left on this post. He spelled out curse words completely in his post on Truth Social. Open the effing straight, you crazy, you crazy B words, ends in a D. Or you'll be living in hell, just watch, praise be to Allah. This is what Trump wrote on Truth Social. He was demanding that Iran open the Strait of Hormuz, which is the primary passageway for about 20% of the global oil supply. The next day, he threatened all of Iran, even innocent citizens. The NAACP responded last week with an email note to his members signed by its president, CEO Derek Johnson. The note read, "The stability of our nation is hanging in the balance. In recent weeks, we have witnessed alarming signs of President Trump's deteriorating health and increasingly delusional behavior. The rhetoric and actions coming from the highest office in the land have reached a level of instability that we cannot ignore. His behavior is not only alarming, but dangerous," end quote. But the email did continue. This is no longer just a matter of political disagreement. It's a grave national security crisis. A leader unable to think clearly or act decisively jeopardizes our military readiness, erodes public trust, and threatens the safety of millions of Americans. We cannot wait for further chaos. We must protect the fabric of our democracy right now. And the organization then listed 3 demands, the NAACP. The demands are: invoke the 25th Amendment. The vice president and the cabinet must step forward immediately to ensure the continuity of governance. The second demand, remove the threat. We must address this presidential incapacity to protect our nation from further uncertainty. The third demand, congressional action. Once the vice president and cabinet step up, Congress must follow through and act with the urgency this situation demands to uphold the principles of our Constitution. Now, Section 4 of the Constitution's 25th Amendment states as follows, the article says, quote, whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. The section goes on to read, thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit within 4 days to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of the Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress within 21 days after receipt of the letter of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session, within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 of vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Or I should say the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office, end quote. And the article concludes that it is not likely that there would be enough will to remove Trump from office, given the dedication that the Republican majorities have maintained toward him. Besides, this week, Congress remained on Easter recess, and Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has not criticized Trump's conduct or his war with Iran. The primary criticism is coming from the Democrats. Still, the NAACP is adamant about what it feels must be done. And so, again, this is an article that was published in the Louisiana Weekly, and this was actually published on Tuesday the 14th by Hazel Trice Edney. Interestingly enough, there is someone, and after we finish, or after we come from the break here, I'm going to see if we can get the audio on this. See if we can get the audio on this Instagram post by Dr. Adam James. Adam James is a very, very interesting person. He is someone who has a doctor of physical therapy. He has spent a lot of time on social media, particularly Instagram, talking about the state of the president. And the reason is James has worked extensively with folks with dementia. So in his posts, he's always pointing out the signs that President Trump is having trouble. The thing is that James has been doing a countdown in which he is saying that the president's health will continue to decline, and decline to the end, he means, or the presidency is going to end with the 25th Amendment being invoked or with Trump being impeached. He's been doing this countdown for a couple of months now. And so we're going to see if we can get this audio. But as I pull it up accidentally on my phone, but we're going to see if we can get the audio from this in just a couple of minutes. But what are you thinking here? I mean, first of all, do you think that this is realistic, that the 25th Amendment would be invoked? I mean, folks are calling for it, but is it realistic that it could happen? I would be eager to know your thoughts. The number is 504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. I'm Eddie Francis, in for Will Sutton on the Good Morning Show on WBOK. What New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Good Thursday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. This morning, 4 people are picking up the pieces after a massive fire in the Bywater. The NOFD says it's a multi-unit building and all 4 people inside were able to safely escape. The NOFD also says the cause of that fire is under investigation. Today, the Archdiocese of New Orleans is back in court for another bankruptcy hearing. This comes after a judge approved a $230 million settlement back in December to compensate hundreds of clergy sex abuse survivors. Nearly 150 parishes and charities will contribute $65 million to the settlement fund, and the diocese will also pay about $28 million with an interest rate of a little more than 4% over 12 years to bondholders, as well as pay a portion of additional fees. The money is expected to pay out an estimated 600 claimants in the case. The Clerk of Court's office, along with the Registrar of Voters, are reminding you to check on your voter registration. The system was purged recently for a number of reasons. And now in this process, many people reported being switched to an inactive voter, especially requiring them to check in and ensure they are actively aiming to vote in elections. However, you are still able to vote in this election. Early voting, by the way, runs from May 2nd through the 9th. And First Quarter Fest is here, and if you rely on RTA to get around, riders may see delays on several bus routes and streetcar lines, but they're increasing capacity in the Canal Street Algiers ferry. All right, I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day.
Late nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Show. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And again, as we just read an article with or I should say in the Louisiana Weekly, you can go to louisianaweekly.com where you can see an article where the NAACP is calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked to remove President Donald Trump from office. And that article was on April 11th. But the thing that is really interesting is that, I'll tell you what's most interesting to me. What's really most interesting to me, and I really want to call people to task on this. When the election was happening and Joe Biden was having brain fog in debates, immediately, folks came out and said he's too old to do this. Now, I didn't necessarily agree completely with the opinion because I was of the opinion that if he was going to be president, he doesn't do the job by himself. He has a team. But I also didn't necessarily blow that opinion off, that Joe Biden was too old to do it. Because, yes, you stand up in front of a group of people, you stand up in front of the world or the media, you have brain fog. That's not exactly what you want, right? And so I completely understood it. I didn't fight it completely. I have to say that. But I'm really kind of interested in the fact that people, even on a Democrat side, didn't criticize Trump for the same thing. Because the overwhelming opinion was Joe Biden is too old to be in office. And you saw some of the behaviors that Trump he displayed, yet nobody was that critical of his age. Interestingly, during the election, the criticism went right back to Kamala Harris, quote unquote, not having any policies. So I'm trying to figure out, how is it that even folks who describe themselves as liberal or progressive, how is it that even they missed opportunities to be critical of what did appear to be some cognitive decline, in my opinion, from the president? What I'm saying here is that if your opinion about age is going to be that one is too old, why was it not applied to another person? Now, I don't believe in ageism. Let's be clear about that. You're hearing this from somebody who was a former job recruiter. Ageism is a no-no. You don't tell people they can't do the job because they are a certain age. Because I know people who are in their 70s, their 80s, they are razor sharp, sharper than 20-year-olds. I know folks who I would go to in a second to have a rational conversation with that a 30-something or a 40-something and even a 50-something-year-old cannot handle. So that is something that I think we need to keep in mind. But I'm really, really interested in how is it that we've gotten to this point? And in my opinion, it was assisted by people who focused their criticism in one direction during the election. This is me talking. This is my opinion. But there's this doctor named Adam James. Adam James is on social media, and his screen name or his username is Epistemic Crisis on Instagram. And James has been talking for months about Trump's cognitive decline. This is a post that he did on Instagram that is from October 25th, 2025, when there was video of President Trump walking a red carpet and he was unable to hold his lane. Jared, play the video, please.
Because he's had a stroke and his spatial awareness, balance, strength, and gait have all been affected. I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 14 years experience treating geriatric patients just like the president. The reason he's meandering all across that red carpet is because he lacks the spatial awareness to stay on target or on the path in a straight line. This is because I believe he's had a stroke that's affected the left side of his brain and caused weakness on the right side of his body. When one side of your body is weaker than the other, it can become difficult to walk in a straight line anymore. But aside from the physical weakness, your balance is affected as well. All of the built-in programming in your cerebellum that's been there since you were small, it gets holes poked in it by a cerebrovascular accident, or even just a series of TIAs, or transient ischemic attacks. When he went back to Walter Reed for that checkup, it was a 6-week follow-up for a stroke event that he probably had over Labor Day. A stroke on the left side of the brain would also explain why he talks nonsense so much more often nowadays, and also why when he is fatigued after long travel like you see in that video, his speech is much slower, much quieter, and much more slurred. His stroke events have not been severe enough for him not to be able to hide it for the most part. But as I tell many stroke patients who still want to smoke, it's much easier to have a stroke once you've already had one. And on top of that, being 80 years old, he's also experiencing age-related cognitive decline that any 80-year-old would experience regardless of their medical history. His plan is to stay in the White House permanently. He has no intention of reopening the government, and he has no intention of releasing anything to do with those pesky files. But the people closest to him know what kind of medical condition he's really in and how close he actually is to having the 25th Amendment invoked. I'd say he's got 5 to 7 months left with us in total. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
And once again, that's Adam James. He has a doctorate in physical therapy, and he has worked with dementia patients. His username on Instagram is Epistemic Crisis. And, you know, he's been doing his countdown, and he's been consistent the entire time. Now, it is worth mentioning that, of course, this is his opinion. And this is not necessarily an endorsement of his opinion, but it is his opinion. But I have to say that I would say that this is a qualified opinion. Now, going to Facebook, a couple of comments that we have here. Melma says Age provides decades of information, expertise, and learning experiences. She also made the point that for the debate where President Biden had brain fog, he was ill for that debate. And I think that's a great point. It was really interesting to me just to see the panic that happened. But it was also interesting to me to see how quickly people turned, but were not consistent in their criticism. And again, my point is this. If you're going to say that age is a problem in one place for one person, why not apply that for someone who's at the same age? And that did not happen. That did not happen. So now we're at this point where you can see and you can hear odd things happening with this man. You can see it and you can hear it. Now, I'm of the opinion that he has a personality disorder. As someone who researched narcissistic leadership for 2 years for a master's degree, as someone who did hours and hours and hours and hours of academic literature reviews, I came to the opinion that part of the man's problem is that he's a narcissistic, he's a malignant narcissist. I know I have at least one person who disagrees with that, but that is my opinion. Because to me, he has the markers. He has the markers. I mean, first of all, almost any and everything that Trump does is out of self-interest, and it is driven, or self-importance. It is driven by self-interest. He tells people this. And then the second marker is that he displays grandiosity, in my opinion, and that comes out of a sense of hubris. And then the third marker, which is the biggest one, is he displays vulnerability, which to me is driven by emotional volatility. Those are three markers of narcissism. And then on top of all of that, if you disagree with him, and he makes this very public, he has to make you pay. So on top of having what people believe to be cognitive decline, on top of all of that is a severe personality disorder. And in the paper that I wrote for my master's degree, because I wrote this paper for the School of Public Service, or the College of Public Service at Tennessee State. And since I was participating in a program that deals with public service, one of the parts of the paper was recommendations for public service. And my recommendation after writing this paper on narcissistic leadership and the impact that it has on followers was that people who want to run for public office, especially the highest office in the land, should be mentally evaluated. And I'm not talking about anything like a neurodivergence. I'm talking about for disorders. Disorders where rational judgment is clouded. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think it's very interesting that there is this push right now to invoke the 25th Amendment. I do have to wonder if part of that might be due to James, because like I said, he has been consistent for several months. He's been consistent with this since October, and I want to say since September, maybe before that. So it's been months that he's been on this. Good morning. We have Ms. Jones on the line right now. Good morning, Ms. Jones. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Good morning to you and to the listening audience. The big question is, with all of this situation with Donald Trump, why is he continually being in office? Why? Are the people scared? Because people act like they're scared to go against him. There's something wrong about it. He was put here probably as a human weapon to destroy this country within. It's quite obvious.
Yeah.
Quite obvious. And if something's wrong, I think worse for the people who support him. Something's got to be wrong with them.
You know, Ms. Jones, I don't know if you are familiar with Anthony Scaramucci, but he was the first communications director under Trump. And I follow him on social media. And Scaramucci has been of the opinion that the reason he does get away with the things that he does is people are afraid of him.
And why are they afraid of him? What is it? Is it posing danger for all the citizens in this country? Something is totally abnormal.
You know, so one of the things that my research did bear out is that when people are when they are in subordinate positions to malignant narcissists, one of the things that malignant narcissist makes it a point to do is to invoke fear in some way. So what they do is they threaten you with your job. They threaten you with something that means something to you. At work, it's easy to do that because you have your job. And a lot of times they're going to target people who they know need their jobs really, really badly. Or I think in the case of the government, people who want their jobs very badly because they want all of the trappings that come along with that job. And on top of that, my opinion is that he probably has a lot of dirt on a lot of people. And he made sure that he hired people who he had dirt on, or he hired people who he knew would be afraid of him. Because they work in very intentional ways. And I think that's what you have. I think you have people who he made sure he identified would be afraid of him. He's not going to hire you or me.
No,
that ain't
probably
happening.
not.
I mean, listen, I've dealt with somebody with his personality type, Ms. Jones. And let me tell you, when I tell you it was grand opening and grand closing for me, as a matter of fact, twice. I have had 2 jobs where I've dealt with people like that. And I was one of the first people that they want to get rid of very quickly.
It's just something, but I mean, a whole country and all of the people that follow him, something's wrong with them.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing really wrong, I don't think, with Biden. Whatever they sprayed in the air that he inhaled or something, I don't know. It's scientific.
Yeah, if anything, Biden, he's aging. And that's just all there is to it. But that doesn't mean he's not intelligent.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
now, how do you get by using all the curse words and look like people are following Trump? And I don't hear any of the nationwide, worldwide evangelist people speaking against that.
They're not going to.
All they want to do is collect money.
They're not going to. And
collect tithes. They're not going to talk.
Yeah.
Shame on them. They're in a position.
And Ms. Jones, I have to tell you, I have a theory about why you have these people who voted for him, because he is a reflection of them. That's why.
Definitely.
They I think a lot of these people voted for them. They saw themselves in him. And this is one of those birds of a feather thing. That's my opinion. My opinion is that you have and there's actually research that says that narcissism is an epidemic. And so that's what the research suggests. And so it is really not unreasonable, in my opinion, to suggest that a nation full of narcissists voted for the man.
Well, they're programmed worse than programmed. We used to use the word you're programmed to do this and that and the other, but it's much worse.
It is.
It was said years ago, U.S. would destroy within. They won't have to fire one shot.
Yep.
If anybody goes back into history.
Yep.
And I've noticed people, who are protesting against no war, saying no war, looking at you as if you're crazy. I wish I could have gotten out of my car and asked them, well, did you support him? Well, you put up the no war sign.
Yeah.
You do it, because many of us have already said it.
Yeah.
No war. But like I said, I've seen he's set the stage for any old language, obscene language. That's the only 2 he knows, obscene and barely English.
Yes, he does. Well, Ms. Jones, thank you so much, as always, for calling. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, so that is possibly that is possibly what we are dealing with. And I mean, to me, I think what we have, and I think what people have finally had enough of in wanting to invoke the 25th Amendment, is that there is a dangerous combination of cognitive decline, but then also a severe personality disorder that has really caused an immense problem all in one person. And so, so we actually do have an interview that's going to be coming up in just a little bit. We can take a couple other calls right now. We're going to do these really, really quick. Good morning, Elwin. How are you? You got give me about 30 seconds, man. What you got?
Okay, that's all I need. Look, why don't you do a mental health show just on Donald Trump and look and bleep out all the stuff he says that's not fit for radio, and let the public decide if he's fit for office.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. And I think we've gotten to that point pretty much. Don, good morning. You got about 30 seconds, my friend. How are you?
All right. When we talk about a Donald Trump, and the issue with the Republican Party is they are afraid of their fleeting wealth. You look at the top wealthy senators and congresspeople. I mean, the guy from West Virginia, senator from West Virginia, was the governor. He's worth like what? They say over $600 million. And then you have, most of the list is made up of Republicans. So the issue is, and we know that it says that the wealth is fleeting. It doesn't usually last beyond the third generation. And so these people are being misinformed. We talk about financial literacy. It happens to people with money. And so the issue is, when we talk about opportunity and those who are willing to work for the word of God, not to bring in biblical meaning, it says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That's his grandchildren. But many don't prepare. They operate from a standpoint of privilege, not a standpoint of working and making your own way and putting themselves up by the bootstrap as they try to propose on other people while they're sitting at the government troughs. So it's the issue of inequality, opportunity, and the maldistribution of wealth and opportunity of wealth. And these people are scared. They're not afraid of Donald Trump. They're afraid of poverty. They're afraid of things that wealth has privileged them, and they're so afraid of that. Well, Donald Trump is using that to wield his power.
All right.
The fear of failure.
All right, Don. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. We got to go to a commercial break, and coming up next, we have an interesting conversation about a story that came out in the Lens. Katie Reckdahl is going to join us. My name is Eddie Francis, in for Will Sutton on the Good Morning Show on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
Mostly sunny skies and warm once again. We'll see highs 82 to 87. There is a small chance of a shower or two for today, for the afternoon and the evening, but again, most of us will end up staying dry. Then for tonight, lows 63 to 66. For your Friday, highs 82 to 88. For Saturday, also into the 80s. And then a cold front moves in for Sunday morning, dropping our temperatures to the 70s. For the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Missed a show? Want to hear that guest everyone's talking about? WBOK is now streaming on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search WBOK Media, hit download, share with a friend, and don't forget to rate your favorite shows 5 stars. Because when our voices are heard, our impact grows.
City Park is where to go when you don't know where to go. Turn towards the city center and start walking. Before long, you'll end up where you belong. At the heart of the city, New Orleans City Park. Stroll along the reeded marsh. Wander through the sculpture garden. Rest and recharge beneath ancient oak trees. This is where your spirit goes to grow. It's in our nature to yearn for nature. NewOrleansCityPark.org, heart of the city.
LifeCare provides valuable whole life insurance to cover final expenses such as medical bills, burial costs, and unpaid debt.
A final expense insurance policy is fast, easy, affordable life insurance that's available to anyone between the ages of 50 and 80. No medical exams, no lengthy questionnaires, and no waiting period. The application process is quick and easy. You can even apply without having to undergo a medical examination. Just answer a few questions and we'll do the rest. With the average funeral cost skyrocketing to $11,000 and Social Security only paying $255, you need simple, affordable peace of mind for you and your whole family. Don't leave behind unpaid expenses that, if left unattended, will burden your family tremendously. Benefits include a guaranteed premium that will never increase, a guaranteed cash value, and a guaranteed death benefit that can never decrease. To find out how you can get final expense insurance with a guaranteed lifetime rate lock, call LifeCare at 800-571-9955. That's 800-571-9955. 800-571-9955.
Welcome to Chemical of the Month from the Community Scientist and Rise St. James. This month's focus is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, formed when fuels like oil, gas, wood, or trash are burned. These chemicals can enter the air we breathe and settle into our soil and water. Many PAHs are known carcinogens, adding to the health burdens faced by communities living near industry. Learn how to protect your health at risestjames.org.
Greetings and salutations. I am Elwood B. Coulon Smith, chairman of the board of the New Orleans Regional Black Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to invite you to tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon on WBOK to listen in on Black to Business and be a part of the movement that's going on. Thank you.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
To the Good Morning Show. Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton. Wishing Will the best. Feeling a little under the weather. And so you have had to deal with me. But this morning, we are pleased to have in studio with us Katie Reckdahl. She's an editor with The Lens, and she wrote a piece the other day. Did faulty court data drive the legislative push to cut 11 judges and clerk in Orleans Parish? Good morning, Katie. How are you?
I'm all right. Nice to be on the air with you.
Yes, it's good to have you and talk about, I don't know, interesting. I think we're beyond the word interesting at this point, way beyond. So what are the faulty data that we're talking about? I mean, where does this start?
Well, I saw a report. I got a report that showed that the case numbers were actually basically twice as high for Orleans Parish as what was in the Supreme Court's annual report, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, wait a minute. We're talking about, especially, for the judges and the clerk, we're talking about, is there efficiency, right? And if we have half of the number of cases reflected in Supreme Court data that's being cited by the Republican proponents of that bill, isn't that important information?
Mm-hmm. What's the argument that Jay Morris has been, for people who, don't know exactly what the argument, what has he been saying in the chambers?
Well, when he's trying to make an evidence argument, he is saying that Orleans is bloated, that the courts are bloated, that they need to be right-sized, right? But then he cited a Supreme Court study, and I have to say, the debate between, I don't know if that made it to YouTube, the debate between him and Gary Carter about this point. Gary Carter said, wait a minute, I'm reading the Supreme Court study that you're citing, saying that it's asking for judges to be cut, to be reduced, right? And the report doesn't say that, right? So, Gary Carter's a lawyer, so is Morris. Mm-hmm. Actually, Jay Morris is a lawyer too. So he said, he's saying, like, basically, we're both lawyers in a court of law. This means I win. You're citing something that's not true, right? And Morris said, well, it's not that report, it's this report, right? So he hands him another report, still doesn't say that judges should be cut. And Gary Carter reads it again, says, well, wait a minute, this one doesn't say that judges should be cut either. And Morris said back to him, so?
Wow.
So that's how contentious and without validity the argument is. The argument is not based on evidence or fact. It's clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, I've written 2 articles now about the fact that the data is not good. And I think it helps to sort of understand how fallacious this argument is. Because if you have, as I pointed out, twice the number of cases in Orleans as it reflected in the Supreme Court data, then how can you say that you have twice as many judges as you need? If the numbers are showing you that and the numbers are wrong, maybe we have the right amount of judges.
Mm. This is so. Let me just take a quick tangent right here about the argument that people like to use when they say, data doesn't lie and that sort of thing. And my response to that, especially as someone who has done academic research, my response to that is maybe the data don't lie, but people do. Mm-hmm. And people lie and create false data. And you have people who misinterpret data.
Right.
And they misuse data. And so that is, it sounds like we're dealing with, some mixture of all of these in this case, or at least a couple of those points. One of the things that you mentioned to me right before we started the interview, you mentioned this off air, are the proportions from parish to parish. Right. And so what stood out to you in writing your pieces about the proportions from parish to parish, especially based on the arguments that Morris has been using?
Well, the Orleans case number, as approved by the Supreme Court, is 4,000 cases a year, right? So consider that. That's Orleans. It's one of the biggest cities in the state. 4,000 cases, criminal cases, right? 137 jury trials, right? So, heavy felony record, heavy felony cases, but also just 4,000 total cases. Comparatively, in the Supreme Court annual report, way up Wichita Parish, which, is not a giant parish. It has 18,000 criminal cases in 2025. 18,000 recorded. Now that means you arrested me, you charged me with theft, resisting arrest, and possession of weed, right? You're going to count 3 cases for that, where Orleans would count 1, right? Or maybe you also put on, all kind of other charges, broken headlight or whatever. I don't know what that would be, but it have to be criminal level. But still, all of those, every charge, some clerks count every charge that's in a bill as a case. That seems like a pretty easy error to correct. And in fact, in a 2014 letter to the Supreme Court, a report was written by the National Center for State Courts saying we have some problems with getting your data together, and chiefly the big problem was in a section called data quality.
Oh, wow.
So that's because, and this is from 2014. So this has been going on for a second, right? There's been nothing trying to correct this. So it seems to me that, let's say that Orleans has not too many judges. You can't make that case if you don't have your data, right?
Right.
So somebody's got to push on this process to make it right, I think.
So we're basically, at the end of the day, we're talking about data that's basically corrupted.
Right. It's meaningless. It's meaningless.
So for people who may not know, what's the status of these bills right now? I mean, because there's several bills all pointed almost at the same thing, it seems like. I mean,
Right.
where are they?
Well, so as of this morning, the bill that would eliminate the clerk of court office, which is the incoming Kelvin Duncan position, that is in committee, scheduled to be in House committee today. We expect it'll be passed out of committee favorably and then go to the House floor, where it likely will be passed, and then go to the governor. So I don't know the speed of that, but that's it's only got a couple more steps before it's signed by the governor. That's ahead of the other bills. The bills, there are two bills that deal with judges, 11 judges total, 2 from the appellate court and 9 from across the judiciary, including 4 at criminal court. So that's a pretty big chunk at criminal court if you think about how many cases there are. And if you just go to a courtroom in Orleans and watch the proceedings, you can see, I mean, if I have a court date, I'm going to sit there probably till 3 in the afternoon to, if I'm the last one called, 3, 4 in the afternoon. So those judges are on the bench for long periods of time. Then they have to get off, write opinions, all that stuff. I'm not seeing a lot of, people leaving the court and being done with the court at noon kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I think that's just observation, right? But the data, if you're only counting half the defendants that are coming in that courtroom, you're basically not counting the magistrate cases, is what they're saying. But it also raises questions about the other cases, right? If you're not counting magistrate cases, what are you not counting in the other caseloads that Wichita is to get to 18,000 cases, right? I think it's worth asking.
Do you get the sense that at this point, opponents of these bills are overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think that they're trying as hard as they can to figure out. I don't know what's going on with the judge's bill. That was supposed to go on the Senate floor. I think it was scheduled for the Senate floor yesterday and the day before. It didn't make it either day. So maybe that's a sign that there's some negotiation, or maybe there's just too many bills ahead of it. I don't know. But I think the bigger picture is there's a Republican majority, and this is a political will bill. And so you can argue logic all day, and it really doesn't matter.
And I think that's what people, I think that's what people are really frustrated by. Right. It seems as if, and I've seen some social media activity, people saying, I called my state senator, I called my state representative, I wrote emails to them, and they just don't seem to care. Right. And that is a huge frustration that the public seems to be going through right now. And forget being partisan. I mean, this is about listening to your constituents. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's pretty much the alarming thing that it seems like we're dealing with. It seems like we're dealing with partisan politics, and they are just hell bent on just ramming it down the constituents' throats, one way or the other. Right. I know this is a really broad question, and a loaded question, but does New Orleans have any friends in North Louisiana or Central Louisiana?
It's a really good question, right? It reminds me of when I was a cub reporter, a little bitty reporter in Minneapolis, covering the State House there, and I'm a small town girl. I grew up in small town Minnesota, but there was always that vibe, the cities against the rural area, and that happens here too. I think it's a national thing that the cities and the rural areas don't see it eye to eye. There always is somebody who's an ally, but I don't even know if there's anybody right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back to 15 years ago when that 2011 bill came to remove UNO from the LSU system, move it to the UL system, and SUNO was thrown into the bill. And there was a whole lot of, I was the director of PR at SUNO at that time. And there was a whole lot of, okay, we got to figure out who the enemy of our enemy is in this thing. Mm-hmm. And it seems that's what, this area of the state, that's what folks are dependent on to fight these bills. It seems there's got to be an enemy of an enemy somewhere, and somebody's trying to figure out who that is. And so But it seems as if that's not even being figured out in the legislature. It seems like they're struggling with that too, the opponents of the bill in the legislature.
Right. It's just, it's so hard to figure out where the push points are, because I think when the governor wants something, okay, but we can have a moment. This governor was not elected by 68% of the vote like Calvin Duncan. He was elected with what? Nothing, right?
Yes.
So it's interesting that the governor, I guess he's the governor, and now he's got the Greenland position, but I don't understand how this governor has so much stroke. Compared to Orleans.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Orleans is the pride and joy of Louisiana, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to understand. It reminds me. We should say that right now in the courthouse. The Troop NOLA cases, which when there used to be cases that were brought by, state police or whatever. Those, I don't remember them not going through the courthouse if there were no Orleans arrests. Now, the Troop NOLA arrests are prosecuted by the AG in Tulane and Broad. So there's been some kind of step into Tulane and Broad in a way that this seems to be a sort of another way that this is happening.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for giving us an update on what's going on with the courses, and thank you for the work that you did with the lens. Really appreciate, because I think a lot of folks have been trying to figure out where for lack of a better word, where the wonky parts of this debate have been. Katie Reckdahl, she is the editor of the Lens, and coming up in just a little bit, we're going to close this thing out. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton on the Good Morning Show on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Are you ready for a voice that says what you're thinking? Who that, you might ask? Arrington Gavin. That's right, I'm your guy, host of the Arrington Gavin Show, giving you so much filled with bold opinions, real conversations, and zero sugarcoating. We're going to be diving into the issues that matter: politics, pop culture, and all the above, unfiltered and unafraid. Catch the Arrington Gavin Show weeknights from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Fridays, right here on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
This is Andronika Morris, host of Put Housing First. Join us every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, where we will discuss how housing affects every aspect of our lives and what's necessary, what's needed to guarantee housing for all. Join us every Tuesday at 12 o'clock as we dig down deep onto the issues that affect all of us.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and do not have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you do not pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call. If you've been injured in an auto accident, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524. 800-269-4524.
This is The Law in Your Legacy. I'm attorney Pete Hamilton.
I'm attorney Ryan Hamilton.
If you had $1 million, would you leave it to an 18-year-old?
Hopefully not, but that's exactly what can happen with a simple will. The money goes straight to your kids when they hit the legal age, no guardrails.
A trust lets you control when and how they receive their inheritance. You can set ages, milestones, or even make sure they finish school first.
Give them security, not a spending spree.
This is not legal advice. That's just a tip brought to you by Liberty Bank and Trust. For more information, go to libertybank.net or contact us at 504-915-5016.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Thanks again to Katie Reckdahl, editor of The Lens, who has been covering the legislative session, and she says she's actually on the way to cover some court activity. Some really disturbing news out of Virginia this morning. Former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, has died by suicide, and he also killed his wife. This is an overnight development. It was a murder-suicide at their home in Fairfax County, police say. And this is a report by The Hill, thehill.com. Fairfax Police Chief Kevin Davis told reporters that Fairfax had fatally shot his wife, Serena Fairfax, in their home in Annandale, Virginia, before killing himself. And it says that it has been an ongoing domestic dispute surrounding what seems to be a complicated or messy divorce, and that is the belief. Justin Fairfax, who, by the way, is if you remember, Justin Fairfax is black. Fairfax was 47 years old. He served as lieutenant governor from 2018 to 2022 under former Governor Ralph Northam from Virginia. And during his time in his office, 2 women accused Fairfax of sexual assault, but he denied any wrongdoing. And so that is unfortunate news out of Virginia. However, for the rest of the day, please take care of yourself. Have a good day. Take some time for mindfulness and take some time for gratitude. Coming up next, we do have The Front Porch. Kemba and Grayla are going to be hanging out with you. Hang out with them because they do need friends. I'm Eddie Francis in for Will Sutton, and I'm going to see you tomorrow here on the Good Morning Show on